Hi everybody! In this tutorial we are going to be learning some color changing with two colors. We're going to be making this heart shape in the center and then having this white background. It'll show up on both sides. So without further ado, let's learn the new skill in color changing. All the material that we will be using in this tutorial today, I will have affiliated links in the description down below. Be sure to check that out. I always put together pretty good, decent lists for all the things that you will need to help you get going on your projects. So for this tutorial, you're going to need two different colors of yarn. So I'm doing pink for my heart, and then I'm going to do white for the background. You can do any background color or any color for your heart. This is just how the pattern looks on my grid. So I'm doing this to make it easier for you guys to follow along. And these are 4-weight acrylic. And since I'm using a 4-weight acrylic yarn, I'm going to be using an eye or a 5.25 millimeter hook. Try to pay attention to your yarn labels on what hook it recommends, because that'll be the best for your project. You'll also need a pair of scissors when we're finished. You'll need some needles. These are specifically designed for using yarn, so I would recommend using a thick one because it's just better to work through your yarn and all through your loops and all that fun stuff. And you'll also need your pattern. I will have linked in the description where you can get a copy of this or see the pattern as well. And a better way for me to keep track of what I'm doing, I like to use a page protector, because as I go I'm going to be crossing off all my different squares. So you're welcome to just mark on the actual pattern, but if you're planning on making this multiple times, maybe doing kind of a dry erase system would probably work best. So let's get started on making our little heart square. So to kind of understand how our graph works, hopefully you guys can see this, the glitter's not on there. You will start on your bottom square right here. Like you'll start reading it this way. So a lot of times what I will do to help me keep track of which direction is I will draw little arrows, so which directions I'll be going. I won't do all of it right now because it's going to throw us off once we do our chaining, but I will be doing that here in a second. So what you want to pay attention to is we have 13, so that's how much we will be chaining. So since we'll be single crocheting, you'll actually want to add one more, so you do a +1 and that'll give us 14, because you'll skip a chain. Trust me, it'll make sense. So just remember, we will be chaining 14 to get started. So I've got my pink, which we won't be using for a little while because that's where our pink's starting. So I'm going to get my white here unraveled so I can get going on doing that. So we will start chaining with our white yarn, and we'll be doing that 14. So chain 14. If you're still pretty new with crocheting and don't know how to chain, I will have a beginner tutorial on how to do chaining listed down below, and my playlist as well for crocheting for beginners. So be sure to check that out as well and get some practice in. That'll help with this project for sure. We'll just be focusing mostly on single crocheting and color changes, but we will chain our 14. Alright, so we've got our 14, so make sure you count that you have 14 of them. So what we'll do now, so that is just our beginning part. So that does not count towards this graph. So now we'll be counting for our first row, because this is our first one right here. That'll be our first row. And so we'll start And every single one of these is white, so that means every stitch we're going to be doing, just like if we were to do any other single crochet, it'll be the same way. So we'll skip our first stitch. That's why I was saying we wanted to chain 14, so we'd have 13. So we'll skip that first one, and then we'll just single crochet in each one across. So just like if we were starting any normal project. All right, I just finished that first row. So you should make sure you count. So from here on, you should always have 13 stitches. So if you're wanting to count your stitches every time, it should always be 13 because that's how wide our rectangle is going to be. So you should always have 13. So make sure you're doing that. All right, so now that we finished that entire row, what I like to do, this one's not such a big deal, but if I was doing a bigger project, it definitely helps you keep track. But you can, you know, X, or I'll just usually draw a line through it because I know it's done. So now this is where, when I was mentioning doing the arrows, because that'll help you keep track of which direction your work is going. So just, if you want to do that, I know sometimes that'll help me, especially when you're doing a lot of rows. It can get really complicated on where you left off or which direction you're looking. It'll just kind of help you with that. All right, so now this is where that color is going to be changing. So we'll have to do our color change here. So I usually will count, because I see, okay, I'm going to have to stop right around here. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll get to do 6 squares white, and then I'll have to do my color change. So I'll show you those first 6 and how you'll do that color change. So we got our 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5. All right, and so the 6th one's going to be a little different. There's multiple ways you could do a color change. I'm going to show you my favorite way of doing it and the way I feel like works best. So when I do a color change, I'll pretend like I'm about to single crochet, but I will stop like this, because usually you would grab and pull through those two. So what I do is I don't do that, and I grab my next color, whatever color it's going to be, and I will pretend it's going to be like when we were going to grab this white yarn. I'm going to make it pretend to be that. So I'm going to drape it over so my tail's in the back. And I'll drape this over and hold it, kind of pinch it, and I'll pull it through those 2 loops. And I'll take that white one and kind of tighten it to more secure. And I'll pull this one and I'll pull it in too. So that's how I like to attach my yarn with the color changes. Because now we just did our 6. So now we're going to do that 1 single crochet in pink. But because it's the only one, we're just going to have to do 1. We're going to have to do that color change again. So what I like to set up for myself is I've got that white yarn that we kind of let go of. I try to tuck it. So this will be the next single crochet I'm going to do with the pink. I kind of like to line it up because you've got your V's. I kind of like to line it up on top of that back V, because when I'm going to do my pink here, because I want to go through that, it makes it so that this can get caught too, as if it was part of the stitch. So I can grab that pink right there. But since we're only doing 1, it's going to be that color change again. So I want to bring the pink that I've been working, bring it forward. And then try to switch to the white. And now that I'm not going to be doing the pink anymore, I can just leave the pink here and then continue on doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, my other 6 along here. So it'll take quite a bit of practice just to get used to how you do your color changing. Alright, so we finished that. So remember, at the end of every row, you're going to chain 1 and turn. Alright, and we just finished this row going this way. See, we got our little arrows helping us remember which direction we're going, because as we're turning and moving everything around, we kind of might forget which direction we're going, because it starts looking the same, especially with this one because it's very symmetrical on both sides. So now we're going to be going this way. So we'll make sure we're matching it. Alright, so we'll get to do a little bit more color change here. So we'll get a little bit more of that practice in. So remember to count our squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll do 5 white. But just like what we did when we had only 6, we don't do that last one all the way. So the 5th one, we won't do it all the way as a full single crochet because we got to do our color change. So here's our 5th one. I'm not going to do it all the way because we got to do that color change. So whenever I do a color change, I try to bring whatever yarn I'm finishing with towards the front, because I find when I do that, it secures this, but then it also makes it so then when I'm ready to work, like this one was one I brought to the front last round, or last row, it makes it so that it's easier and neater when I'm switching colors. So that's a good habit to try and make sure that when you're bringing, just bring it to the front. And I'm grabbing this pink one now, because now we've got to do 1, 2, 3. So this is where you'll kind of have to decide what works best for you, because we're having the white here, and before we just kind of switched between the two. So you can either decide to carry it like we did like this round, where we carried the white over, or you can create a little, what we'll call little bobbins, so have like a little bit of white for this side. We'll do the pink, and then you can do another side with the white on this side. So I know that sounds a little complicated, but I can show you more what I mean as we go here. So like I was saying, you could carry the white through. So I'm gonna try doing that. So we're doing our pink. So we'll attach the pink. Now if I want to carry over, I would bring it over like I did that first row, just where it's kind of on the top, so I can go through both of those, go through that stitch, and it would include that new one. And I would keep doing that across, where I keep that white yarn trailing through to carry it over. Because otherwise, if I didn't, it would be on this side. And so then if I'm not going to carry it over, I would have to have white on this side too. And then because this is our 3rd one, we don't want to work it all the way through. We want to switch. And change it to white. And then work those other 5 squares. So if you liked doing where you just carry the white through like that, then just keep doing this tutorial as I've been showing, or doing this pattern as I've been showing you. So we just finished this one. So we'll cross that one off. So you'll just keep doing where you're switching between those two colors. So like you'll do the 4, but don't do that 4th one all the way through, and then switch to pink, and then do your, but then don't do that one all the way through, and then switch to white, and then go all the way. But if you want to see the other way, I'll show you how to do the other way with stopping here, doing the pink, and then picking up another one. So this is showing round 3 if you want to do it with the little bobbins, having white on one side and white on the other, and then the pink in the middle. So I did my 5, and then I've attached my pink to start changing for pink. But I'm going to drop this one. So what you'll want to do is, I kind of look at, okay, I've got about this much that I'm going to be doing on this side. How much yarn, you know, and I don't really fuss over it too much because I have a whole skein here. If I was doing a much bigger project, which I have done, usually I'm going to have to keep making more and more little bobbins or little balls that I've rolled up. So I'm just going to pretend and just get a small one going here. So I'm going to keep this little one, just a little teeny bit here, just so I have something to work with. So this will be where this one will end. So we've done our color change already. So I would still bring it to the front because this will be helpful when we do our next round. And you know, I explained before, it'll just make our color change more smooth. Because sometimes if you don't, I have done times like that where I forgot to for whatever reason when I did my color change. And it doesn't flow as nicely when you're working with the switching of the pattern. I don't know fully why. It's just, I think it has something to do with the way you tighten your yarn or something. I'm sure you'll see if you make the mistakes I do where you forget to move it. It's a good thing to practice, just bringing it forward. So we're going to leave it here. So we're going to do the stitch right here. So that's our first one of the pink. And we'll do our second one. And that third one's our last one. So remember, we're not doing that one all the way through because we have to do our color change, but we still bring it to the front. And then this is where we'll attach our other white yarn. So that's the other way if you want to. And this way can be nice because sometimes, depending on what colors of yarn you're using, this one might not be such a big deal because of it being so light of colors. But if I were to do something like black and then the pink, and you know, trailing that black between that very light pink, you might see that poking through between the stitches, whereas the white didn't show as much. So this is where a situation like that would be really nice to do this technique, just because if you don't want to see it go through. That's just another way you can do as well. If you're doing a really big project where there's multiple color changes or lots of colors, you're probably going to have to do something like this. And I can show more tutorials if you guys are wanting more than one color of a color change tutorial. I can do that. Just drop it in the comments that you have that request, and I will definitely do that. So we'll just keep doing our back and forth. And so you should end up about here, because I'll start showing. I'll show around rows 8 and 9 and even 10 and show you how to finish that off. So get working on your color changing and working your way up until rows 8, and I will show you guys how to kind of finish up this work. Alright, so I just finished doing my row 7, so I'm at where I said I would be. So we're at 8 now. So I'm just going to be working it, but this is where we notice. So we got 2 here, but then we do a little bit of pink and then white pops up. So there's multiple ways that you can do that portion. And like I said before, when it came to the different options, this is where you could just carry your white underneath this pink, or you could try, I mean, there's not very much. If this was a much bigger scale, this is where this would be a good time to add another bobbin of white right here. But I would just suggest just trying to carry your white At least if you had like on this side, you had a bobbin on this side, I would just carry the white to here. But I've been carrying my white underneath the colors, so I'm just going to be doing that. So we got our pink. I'm going to carry my white. So we have 4 of them. 2, 3. And then we don't do the 4th one all the way because we got to do our color change. Do the white really quick here. But then we're going to go back to pink. So those little 1 squares are kind of tricky with the double color change there. And then I'm carrying my white. Kind of low on my white there, so I was starting to get that color change at the bottom. We've just been kind of working it the way we've been doing. I'm actually probably going to attach my white because it's getting a little short here, so I'll attach a new white one. So if I had a bigger piece, I usually have a lot of tails where I'm finishing off with colors, and that's okay. You can always weave those in later. Or if you're ever only showing just one side of your work and the back side's not something that you would be able to see, like if you were gonna sew a bag or something, you won't typically have to worry about your ends. I still usually weave mine in just so that they don't come loose. So we'll talk about that when we get to the end of this project. So I'm going to chain 1, turn. We're getting down to the end of this one. We got 3 more of these white to do. And my pink's back here. So this is where you'll want to be careful of grabbing your pink. Bring it forward. And I'm constantly tugging mine because I have a looser tension when I do this. So throughout your project, as you're doing your color changes, tug on things a little bit. Like I always bring this over and I tug this. And I pull it through this. So I'm always tugging just to make sure everything's a little more tight. We're doing here 2 pink. Bring this forward. Switch to white. I'm going to weave the pink through, because we got 1, 2, 3 with the white. So if you do, we didn't do a whole lot in this project, but if this would have been a bigger gap where I carried this pink through, I usually will, because you can kind of see where it's trying to poke through there. And so what I like to do is try to like tug to make sure it's not popping up and it's as tight as it can be. You'll still have a little color show through, but that looks like it might be, I could have that be the back. I've always found that when I do these, sometimes there's a side that looks a lot nicer, and that's usually the side I will use, even if that's the original front or not. It's your project, so nobody can tell you that you can't do that. So we're doing a pink now. We got 1 and 2. That was the last one for our pink. So we won't need that pink anymore. And what I like to do when I finish a color, I kind of wait until I finish the row or go a few more stitches so that this is more secured. So like right now, once I do this one, this is a lot more secured. So this could be a good time to kind of snip it. And depending on the piece, I usually leave slightly longer if I'm doing a bigger piece. But this isn't super big, so I don't have to leave quite as long of a tail. And that'll be woven in the end. So we do our 3. Chain 1. Now this will be the nice easy row because you just have to do it all white. And then you get to fasten off because we'll be finished. And then we'll just have to weave in our ends. So we just finished doing all of that. This is where I'll do a chain. And then I will clip it. And you don't really need, because it's the long, or the end of this one. I mean, if you really wanted to, sometimes when I'm doing really big projects and I'm doing a color change, I'll single crochet around to create a border. So you're welcome if you want to keep this and do something with it, or make a bunch of them and sew them together and make like a blanket or something. I would suggest doing a border now. So you just would single crochet all the way around as neatly as you can through the different stitches. I'm just doing this as an example, so I'm not going to be doing that. So I won't leave a very long tail because I'll just be weaving that in. So this will probably be my front since most of my ends are on this side. Didn't turn out too bad. Alright, so since this one was the one that we attached, I'll do this one first. I'm showing you how to weave your ends in. We don't need that anymore. Or that. Alright, so get your needle. And thread whichever piece that you're wanting to thread in. I'm going to do the one that's on the side it shouldn't be, so it matches all the other ones. And I usually will just kind of find, like, it looks like I'm going to just make it go right into that stitch, because this is where those, you know, the stitch was going into that one. So I'll have it go into there just to bring it on this other side. And then what I like to try and find is you'll see like the little bumps where the stitches went in. So I try to go underneath those. Specifically the color that I'm working with, because I don't really want that to pop through on the other side here. So I'll just be focusing where the white is. And you don't really need to do a whole lot. Like, that's enough probably to secure that. So I'll do that with all of these looser ones just to make sure. So like with the pink, I'll probably bring it down here. I'll thread it and bring it down to these loops and pull it through these, just underneath, you know, these little guys here. I'll just do that with all the matching colors. You're just matching colors. And once all of them are kind of tucked underneath, then I'll go in and snip them. So hopefully this was a helpful tutorial on color change. It is something that does take a lot of time. The first thing I think I color changed was a checkered board, and it took a lot of getting used to that yarning towards the front and, you know, getting the things not twisted. Since this is a small enough piece, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with your colors twisting. It's a small enough project. I can do a bigger scale if you guys want. Comment down below and I'll do it. Just request more colors, bigger project, and I can give you all the tips and tricks for that. But for just a beginner's example and just to get yourself familiar with color changing, because it is something that can be very overwhelming and very complicated with some projects. So I can get into that in another video if you guys like. So thank you so much for watching, and as always, subscribe if you're interested in following along to all of my different projects and tutorials. If you're very interested in a specific tutorial, comment it down below. I really love hearing from everybody. Any comments that you want to make, any suggestions. If you have a color changing method that works for you and I didn't mention it in this video, comment it below. We all want to all learn together. So thank you all for watching. Until next time, guys. Bye.